Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Jacqueline Cortez Salmons here at Transformation Health and Wellness in Anaheim Hills, California. I'm glad you could join us today. Today, we're talking about a really important topic. It's very near and dear to my heart. It's part of the reason why I actually went into osteopathic training as opposed to allopathic training. I think there's a lot of us out there who don't quite understand the difference between the two. So allopathic medicine was kind of the traditional Western approach to medicine, and it's been around for hundreds of years, all the way back into the Hippocratic Oath, like Hippocrates' time and so forth, ancient Greece. So basically using medicinal types of means of managing people's ailments. Now, whether that's with an herbal tea or other remedies, again, given the time back in Hippocrates' day, we didn't have a whole lot available to us. Even leading into the 1800s, we had a lot of times like alcohol, laudanum, opiates. We had some of those things available to us, but we certainly didn't have the modern marvels of anesthesia, antibiotics, modern surgeries, and that sort of thing. So really the phrase, for example, like bite the bullet, meant that they literally in the Civil War would give you a bullet to bite on while they were sawing off a limb with no anesthesia. So thankfully, Western medicine has made some huge leaps forward, and we've been able to come up with some of these things. So certainly we want to embrace what conventional medicine world has to offer. Again, there's oftentimes a utility, a time and a place for the use of conventional medicine, and I absolutely appreciate that. In the mid-1800s, however, Andrew Still, who was actually an MD, so an allopathic physician, lost his entire family, I want to say to typhus, but it was an infectious disease, and they basically all succumbed to it, leaving him standing alone in his Missouri cottage going, what the heck do I do with my life? Here I'm a physician. I wasn't able to help my family. Honestly, I've been there, and there's nothing more frustrating than having the knowledge that we have. Again, even given 150 years ago, he had the knowledge that he had at the time and not being able to assist our families in that time of desperate struggle. Again, we're not God, so we can't do everything. But what he started to learn and develop was this concept of osteopathy in that tragic time. So again, if you guys follow my posts, you know that I often talk about like how things have to fall apart in order to come together. Sometimes, best growth comes out of the challenges that we're presented with. So fortunately or unfortunately, through this tribulation that Andrew Still experienced, he actually developed the modern practice of osteopathy. So I wanted to go through the four main concepts of osteopathy for those of us who don't understand kind of what the difference is between osteopathic physicians or DOs and allopathic physicians or MDs, so the traditional medical doctor that you would often think about. So the first of our osteopathic tenets is that the body is a dynamic unit of function. So really kind of bringing back that concept of we are greater than the sum of our parts, right? You can't make a chocolate chip cookie, but from just chocolate chips and just flour, right? It really creates something else when all of those ingredients come together. And we are very much the same as human beings, as living organisms. We're greater than just the cardiovascular system and the skeletal system and the hepatic or liver system. We're really this constellation, this beautiful orchestra of all of these organ systems working together to create something that we look at as life, with our spirit, our minds, and our physical all kind of rolling into one. So what you'll oftentimes hear now, everybody's kind of jumping on board with this holistic approach, holistic. Well, what does that really mean? And really it comes down to that fundamental understanding that we are a dynamic or changing unit of function. All of us works together as opposed to just these separate organ systems. So again, I think that's where sometimes conventional medicine we've become so specialized and even subspecialized that sometimes we lose sight of the forest for the trees. So we're not looking at that whole person. We're looking at, okay, I just focus on your heart. I just focus on your ear canal or your throat. And we're not sort of taking that step back to appreciate that individual for who they are, in their most fundamental state, and making sure that that whole person is treated and managed. The second of our tenets is that the body has an innate ability to heal itself. And it's kind of ironic that that would be our second tenet when he had just lost his entire family to an infectious disease. You would think like, gosh, maybe we don't have the innate ability to heal ourselves. But what I think was really implied here is that, and sort of the part that's left off, if given the right tools. right? And again, this is where I find that there is that really crucial marriage between Western and sort of Eastern or osteopathic type of philosophy. And I guess Missouri at the time was like the wild, wild west. So really like true Western philosophy of osteopathy, so to speak, in that our body does have that ability to heal itself, but it can often get put off path. So it's kind of pushed into a chronic disease state. There can be some, myofascial strain. There can be muscular or skeletal strain. Again, I think chiropractors have been fantastic. They were actually born out of the school of osteopathy. They came after that and devised their own method of practice, which in a lot of ways is very similar. And there's a lot of, again, intersecting lines between chiropractic medicine and osteopathic medicine, but they sort of kind of discarded a bit of the Western philosophy. They sort of didn't want to have responsibility for doing prescriptions and surgeries and all the rest of it, and kind of just focused on structure and form. But coming back to that innate ability to heal ourselves, again, absolutely we can understand, like, if I realign your spine, you're not going to have as much neck pain, you're not going to have as much low back pain. But really, when it comes down to where each of our spinal nerves goes, what it innervates, so for example, T2 through T4 innervates the cardiovascular system. So if you have dysfunction right here between your shoulder blades, it could actually manifest as troubles breathing, it could manifest as issues with your heart, or cardiovascular disease can then lead to dysfunction back here, so they can reciprocate one another. So disease here can actually be diagnosed just by me running up and down, my thumbs up and down your spine and seeing sort of highlights or reddening of some of those areas and say, maybe we need to look into this heart a little bit more closely. Let's do an EKG. Again, incorporating a lot of Western medicine's tools, or conventional allopathic medical tools, to help with what we're able to diagnose with our hands, and appreciating that the body can heal itself. So again, if we give it those right tools, like an antihypertensive medication, or if we need to do an ablation to fix the heart rate, or also do a suboccipital release so we can release the vagus nerve, which is the nerve that actually innervates the electrical activity of the heart. So combining those therapies actually will give the body the ability to say, oh, now I'm back on track again. I meant to do this. Here's where I'm at, and I'm chugging along, getting myself better and better. So we just have to provide it with the appropriate tools. And a lot of times, stand the heck out of the way, let it do its magic, and we are beautifully designed organisms. I mean, I cannot emphasize enough how miraculous we are as human beings, that we have this ability to heal ourselves. There's been a lot of talk lately about the immune system and our immune function, and how we need to challenge that immune function and immune system and keep it active so that we're able to fight off infectious diseases and so forth. Keep it supplemented with things like vitamin B and zinc and our other micronutrients. And again, this all comes into that philosophy of our body's ability to heal itself, again, given the right tools to be able to do so. So that's our second osteopathic tenet. The third is that structure and function are reciprocally interrelated. And this is a big one. Again, this is a big concept within chiropractic medicine as well. If I fix the structure, I will fix the function, right? So function and form. So if I fix the form, the function will follow. And I often kind of equilibrate it to, if you have a hose with water running through it, that's great. You put a kink into the hose and you'll still get a trickle of water through it. Like, it'll still work. You can still water the grass, but it's going to take you 3 times as long. But when we straighten out that hose, or we restore that structure, we then restore the function. Again, when we're talking about back pain and kind of aligning a neck, aligning a pelvis, like, yes, it makes sense that, okay, I'm going to have less back pain, I'm going to have less headaches. That makes sense to pretty much all of us from that musculoskeletal standpoint. But really, again, with osteopathy, it goes much deeper than that. When we talk about Chapman's reflexes and strain counter strain points, other trigger points, and how this can all, like certain strains within the body's system, whether that's musculoskeletal or getting into the craniosacral world, how that affects the functioning of the rest of our organ system. So actually our chemical releases, our hormonal function can all come back and harken back to how our structure is. I encourage you to follow me on Instagram or Facebook. Tomorrow is a super great post. I was so excited, looking at the correlation between the structures of the sphenoid bone and the pelvic bone, how they look very similar, and kind of discussing how we need that synchrony of movement, how that structure is put into place, how our body modifies various structures so that we have appropriate function. It's a really cool post, so hopefully you guys will join for that. So again, that interrelationship between structure and function is really, really important in osteopathy. And we can oftentimes, by correcting some of that structure, again, whether it's craniosacral, like biodynamic flow, cerebral spinal fluid flow, nerves, tendons, alleviation of certain like tendinous areas, like in the carpal tunnel and so forth, is a very familiar one for you guys. All of that is going to play into how our body functions. And then number 4 is kind of, I always look at it as sort of the throwaway tenet, because I feel like it should be just intuitive. But then again, in science, oftentimes we have to sort of spell it all out. So basically, the 4th tenet says, if you understand the first 3 tenets, you can be a great osteopath, right? So it says that rational treatment is based on an understanding of body unity. So again, that we're a dynamic unit of function, self-regulation, our ability to heal ourselves, and that relationship between structure and function. So again, you want to modify your treatment and individualize your treatment to that patient's specific needs. So where did their body go awry? Where has it sort of bound itself up where it's not able to find its path back towards wellness? And how can I help to navigate that body or kind of remove some of those hurdles, make them into speed bumps so that the body can then find its way back to wellness? And that's what's so beautiful about osteopathy, is that we really appreciate the individual nature of each patient. It's not a matter of you just come in, you have high blood pressure, here's your lisinopril, go home, I'll see you in a couple weeks. Although there is, again, there's some of that. We still embrace that. It's not that that's bad. It's just to look at what are some other things that we can open doors to allow your body to function better, such as you don't have great gut absorption. I can give you all of the lisinopril in the world, and it may not work as effectively as it could if your body was actually absorbing things the way that it could. Why is it not absorbing things the way that it can? Do you have an MTHFR mutation, which I found 3 of in the last month? Do you have some sort of other like GI issue? Do you have H. pylori? Do you have dysfunctional bowels or gut, kind of the leaky gut theory? All of these other things could be going on that are going to affect then the medications or the supplements that I give you. I can give you all of the things in the world, but again, if you're not going to absorb it appropriately, then your body's not going to utilize it appropriately. Likewise, if you're not getting good tissue perfusion. So again, we have like microvascular damage because of that long-standing high blood pressure, for example. We're not getting oxygenation to the tissues. If we're not even getting little molecules of oxygen, you can imagine that we're also not getting bigger chemicals such as the lisinopril to those target end organs where they're supposed to be effective. So again, if we're not getting that good tissue perfusion, then that can impair our ability to respond to even those conventional medications. So again, what I've often found in Western medicine is that we have this philosophy, okay, if it doesn't work, then let's double down and do twice as much. So if your thyroid medication doesn't work, then let's give you twice as much. Or if your lisinopril doesn't work, let's double the dose or do it twice a day instead of once a day. Again, without really taking that step back and saying, why is that medication not working? Is it because your patient's not taking it? Is it because she didn't pick it up from the pharmacy? Is it because it's too expensive? Again, very fundamental, basic things that we should all very easily consider, but we don't. And then getting into that absorption, the tissue perfusion. Why is his or her body not responding to this medication in the appropriate way? And is there another tool I can utilize to help it get on that path to wellness, such as electromagnetic frequency type of therapy, heat therapy, hot stones, soft tissue work, again, work between T2 and T4, working on the parasympathetics, again, that vagus nerve, which controls heart rate. There's so much that goes into just understanding the intricacies between the anatomy or the structural and the physiology, which is the functional, and having that relationship and that understanding, I think, is really critical to making an effective treatment management plan with our patients. So if you have any questions, please reach out to us. I'm always happy to answer about our craft, what we do, why I embrace it so much. I think it's just a beautiful way of practicing medicine, and I look forward to hearing from you soon.